Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to look at a thing called outpainting. A very common thing I'm asked is, I've got a 4:3 picture, but everything's widescreen nowadays. How do I make it widescreen? So let's, for example, take this picture of me from a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago, as you can see from the screens here, doing one of my tutorials. I want to make it widescreen. What can I do about it? Your first option is obviously just make the thing bigger and fill the screen. The only trouble is you're chopping bits of it off. So then you can move it up and down so you actually get the subject in there, and maybe you're happy with that. Maybe it looks fine. That's what I have been doing up to now. You could just stretch the whole thing out so it fits. So if I just reset those and say stretch it, you could do that. But then I've got even fatter than I am in the first place. So that's no good whatsoever. So that's why I would normally just zoom into it. Now the other option is fill the sides up with something else. Now on a shot like that, this isn't too hard because nothing moves. I'm totally in the frame, so everything out here is just going to be static and not moving. So I could take an image of that, pop it into Photoshop or Affinity and just fill in the sides using like content aware fill or the outpainting thing that you've got in Affinity. Or you could just start cloning stuff. You could just fill this stuff in. Again, I've done that as well with shots which are fairly easy to do. And yeah, it's okay on this shot, but if I go to the next shot of me, I lean out the edge. So yeah, this is easier to fill. That bit of wall's easier to fill, but what about my arm? My arm keeps disappearing off the edge of the screen. How can I fill that in so it looks normal and not cut off? Answer was, up to now, very, very difficult. I mean, I have occasionally made up a still image of it and then motion tracked it in. But even then, there is so much movement there that tracking would be a real pain in the neck and very unlikely to look 100% real. I would probably give up and say, fudge it, let's just zoom in. Now, with AI, we have an alternative. Now, I'll show you how I achieved it in a minute. It's all using free stuff at the moment. I haven't seen anything paid that lets you do this. And because it's free, it's a little bit involved, but I'll explain an easy way and then a slightly harder way to get into it. But for now, let me just show you the results. So here I have that shot of me. Having processed it, it turns into this. Start it playing, and you can see there, yeah, it's filled it in with stuff that looks sensible. I don't have speakers or subwoofers that look like this at all. There were not blue drawers down here. But if you didn't know that, you'd say, yeah, that looks reasonable. I couldn't tell that wasn't widescreen in the first place. And if I play it, yeah, I really couldn't tell that those weren't there in the first place. Now, it's a bit fuzzy because it's standard definition, so I would normally widescreen it and then take it into another program and upscale it. Again, you can actually upscale it using the program that I'm about to show you, but I personally prefer to use Topaz, and I'll show you some results later on of things upscaled. But yeah, that is actually quite good. What about this shot here, where my shoulder goes off the edge? Well, as you can already see, it just filled my shoulder in fine. It's put a chair in there, it's put a microphone in there, it's put something completely different on the other side. But you notice even when the shot's moving around like that, everything moves normally. And that's the magic of this AI stuff. When it works, which it does actually most of the time, it does a really good job of filling stuff in a way that you wouldn't have known it was not there in the first place. Again, I did not have a chair that looked like that, but it's filled in the back of the chair in a realistic way. I took this, which is a high 8 shot of a beach somewhere, bit wobbly, bit moving up and down. Widescreen version. Okay, still fuzzy and high 80, but filled in the sides perfectly. And what amazes me is the way that it matches the camera movement. If I was trying to do that manually by painting something and then motion tracking it, I would really struggle to make it match the camera movement. For my next shot, this shot of a horse. Again, high 8 original, very fuzzy, and there is a black thing flopping in front of the camera all the time, which is the lens cap on a piece of string which keeps getting blown in front of the lens. So I thought, well, maybe that will upset this kind of stuff. So again, it looks fuzzy. I would want to process this to try and upscale it afterwards, but even when that black thing flops in front of the screen, doesn't phase it at all. it just carries on filling. And the final thing I thought I did, well, okay, let's take that same kind of shot, but rather than chopping it up into individual shots, let's see what happens if you just let it run over a video with lots of different cuts in. The video jumps from that shot straight to that one. Again, lens cap flopping in front of the camera. Then to this one. And it is coping with the shot changing. Now, again, this isn't perfect. Sometimes things don't work 100%, and I'll explain a little bit about that later on. But actually, it's doing a very, very good job, to my mind, of filling in the edges. So how do you use this? So this is using a thing called Pinolio, which is basically a front end for different types of AI. Now, I did mention this before when I was talking about using Flash VSR for upscaling. But you install Pinolio and then you search for WAN2GP and you install that. Once it's installed, you get this kind of interface. Now, WAN2GP lets you do loads and loads of AI stuff. So the first tab here will let me create things from scratch or let me bring in images and animate them. And I have been using that a lot, and I will go through that in another video. You've got a mask creator, which, as you might guess, makes masks. A motion designer, haven't really got to grips with that. But the thing I want to use is this thing, process full video. And this is the thing I am going to use to outpaint, to fill in the edges of a 4x3 video. So having chosen that, come down here and there's lots of different options here, but you choose this thing, LTX 2.3 distilled. Now LTX is a particular type of AI and it can do all sorts of things. It can make pictures up from scratch and do special effects and stuff like that. And that's just the latest version 2.3. And in 2.3 they've added in this outpainting thing. If you choose that, then you pop over here and from the list choose outpainting. Now you can see other things that you've got here, which actually are pretty useful. I might talk about in other videos. Things like refocusing shots. If they're a bit fuzzy, if you haven't got the focus right, that might help solve it. Converting into HDR theoretically gives you a better color depth. Detailer. Detailer is not upscaling. It's just trying to add detail, but actually that works pretty well as well. I'm choosing this one, Outpainting. Now outpainting is something you might be familiar with from a photographic program. There's inpainting and outpainting. Outpainting is basically adding stuff onto the edges. So that's the one you want to use to actually widescreen something. Then you come down here and you put in your path for your original video. Now the easiest way to do this is go to Explorer, find the video that you want to upscale. This shot, which is something I use a lot in my upscaling videos, so I thought I might as well try it out here. I want to put that in there. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to type in D for outpainting, blah, 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 blah. The simplest way to do it is actually go to the shot, right click and say copy as path. Then come here and paste it over the top. And it puts in this. It puts the whole path in with the file name. Get rid of the quotation marks and you're ready to go. Now, the next thing you do is you come down here and you choose the resolution you're going to. Now, I will upscale this later on using a different program. So I'm not going to upscale it as part of the outpainting. So from all these different options here, you can go to lower resolution, go up to 1080p. The higher you go, the longer it's going to take. I choose this thing, 540p, because it's the closest I've got to PAL. Now, my original stuff is all PAL. PAL is 768 by 576. This will make 720 by 540, so it's the closest. And I actually take my original stuff, downscale it to 720 by 540, and then choose this, because I found that gives me the best results. So, I've chosen the output resolution. The chunk size, all your AI stuff has to use your graphics card to do all the actual work. Your graphics card only has a fixed amount of memory. In this particular system, I've got a 5060 Ti, and it says down here it's got 16 gigabytes worth of memory, which isn't a bad graphics card. If I spent more money, I can get a better graphics card. I'd love to be able to buy a 5090 with 24 gig of RAM on it, but I can't afford it because they're about £2,000. So I've got this one as a good compromise. It's got a lot of memory on it and it's pretty fast. If I had a better graphics card, things would go faster. I have used this on a 3060 with 12 gig of RAM and it has also worked. I've not used it on anything lower. Now the chunk size here says I'm going to do this many seconds at once. You might find if you've got less memory on your graphics card, like you've got 12 gig of memory or even 8 gig of memory on your graphics card, it can't handle 12 seconds at once. You'll find out by setting it going, and then it'll come up and complain and say, oh, sorry, your computer's run out of VRAM. In which case you can stick this down to a lower amount. The more you can do at once, the better, because you might notice slight variations at the join. So what it's going to do is it's going to split the video up into 10-second chunks, do each 10-second at a time, and then stitch them back together for you. You might get a disturbance at the join. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So ideally you put this as big as possible. Tend to leave it at 10 for the graphics card that I've got. Here you've got the aspect ratio. So obviously I am talking about taking 4:3 and making it 16:9. But what if you wanted to take something and make it square? So you've got a widescreen picture and you want to make it square. Or you've got a phone video, which is either portrait or landscape, and you want to change it. Here you can choose the aspect ratio you're trying to go for. I'm trying to go for 16:9. The sliding window overlap, when you split things up into chunks, it'll do 10 seconds, then another 10 seconds, then another 10 seconds. This says overlap those 10 seconds by a bit. Overlapping them by 1 frame means that it's doing the minimum amount of overlapping. And with any luck, you'll get away with it. But if you find you get too many big jumps at the joins, you can up this to like 9 frames or 17 frames or whatever, and it will overlap them a bit more, which means it does some processing twice. It'll take longer, but you might not notice the joins so much. Again, I tend to leave that at 1 in case it doesn't work. This stuff down here lets you set in points and out points and lets you decide which audio to use. And again, I don't bother with that because I prepare my stuff in advance. There is a prompt, but again, just leave that as it is. So effectively, load up the clip, choose your resolution, choose your aspect ratio, click start, and then off it goes and it starts working. Now, if there are any errors, it will pop up here. You'll notice for a start, it says this isn't going to work because that file already exists. Because I happen to have already done this, so the file that it already was trying to make up already exists. So maybe what I ought to do is I'm going to copy that, paste it in that, and just add a V2 at the end, and then start it again. Yeah, now it's working. It is saying, well, you're going to drop 5 frames because of the chunk size. So like I mentioned, this thing here says it's splitting it up into chunks. And if it doesn't work out to be regular chunks, it does chop bits off the end. That's something I found with this quite a lot. It will actually chop out bits for you off the end of each video. So each of my videos tends to be a little bit shorter. Now, when I'm using this, what I tend to do is go to my editing program, save out each clip with some handles on it, pop it into here and process them, put them back into my editing program, and just line everything up. So I don't have a problem with that because all my video clips have a little bit extra at the start and the end. But anyway, you start it processing and you wait for it to get on with it. How long it's going to take will really depend on how good your graphics card is and how good your computer is. Looking at this, you can see, oh, I'm already using up quite a bit of memory here. The graphics card's starting to work. I'm going to let it get on with it and see what the results are like. Now this particular clip is 5 seconds long, so I'd expect that on this computer at 540 resolution to take about 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll let it get on with that and then we'll look at the results. Now you can't batch encode these things, you have to do them one at a time. Whilst it's in progress, you can see how it's going down here. It might look for a time like nothing's happening at all, but then it will get on and do stuff. Or you could pop to the video generator tab, and here you'll also get a bit of a progress. If it's doing things in chunks, it might also pop up a picture here after it's done the first chunk. But just let it get on with it. For me at the moment, the biggest pain in the neck about this is that I can't actually batch encode them. If I was doing something in the video generator tab, I could write out a prompt, stick some pictures in, add it to the queue, and I could queue up lots of stuff. At the moment, I can't queue up lots of stuff here. Now, maybe that will change in the future. At the moment, I can't, so I'm having to do them one at a time. Well, there we are. It has now finished. Move down the screen a bit and you can see a still image of the results. It's happily filled in all this stuff. It's put the file where I told it to. Now, if I hadn't stuck anything in the output here, it would literally have just put it next to the original and it would added on this other stuff. So it would have called it Artist2 Outpaint, told me it's Outpainting, 16:9 at 540p from the start to the end of the clip. In this case, I gave it a name, so I called it something myself, but it doesn't matter. Those two actually work out to be exactly the same thing. This one here is the one that I've just created, Archers 2 V2. So if I double click on that and play it, you can now see what it looks like moving. Looks totally realistic, but yet to me, that looks fine. It's even got around the edges here, the sort of naff look of my wide angle lens that I had down here in the first place, which caused a bit of distortion at the edges. And kind of, it's as simple as that. Now you might notice something slightly peculiar there. There's black lines at the top and the bottom. I don't know why it does this, but when you widescreen stuff, it comes out slightly squashed. That's the original. That's the version that it's made. It actually needs to be stretched back to be the right aspect ratio. If I find a way around this, I'll do another video about it. But right now, everything I do, no matter how I put it in there, comes out slightly squashed. What I would normally do is actually take it and make it unsquashed. Now, because I'm using Resolve, I could just select it, come over to the retiming and scaling and say, stretch it, and then it'll fit. So that's the 4:3 over the top. That's the widescreen version. You'll also see the Outpainting one is slightly shorter because it did chop a couple of frames off the end, which again is what it just does. Now, personally, I would take that and then whack it into some kind of upscaler and produce a better looking version. I wouldn't leave it at that. I would normally take this, pop it into Topaz video and upscale it using that. So here you can see the results of that video, which I popped into Topaz, and I've used a new upscaling thing they put in there called Starlight Precise to upscale it. And you can see it's got a lot sharper and a lot nicer all round. I could have upscaled it first and then outpainted it, but the outpainting takes longer the higher resolution it is. So if I had upscaled it first and then outpainting it, it would have taken me longer to produce it. After doing a few tests, I don't think it looks any difference quality-wise to do the outpainting first as opposed to afterwards. So personally, I would prefer to do the outpainting and then upscale it. Now obviously to use Topaz, you've got to pay for it. This Starlight Precise model, which they've only just introduced, is actually both in the normal version and the Pro version, unlike other variations of Starlight, which is nice, and I do think it produces very, very good results. If you don't want to pay for it, there is an alternative, which is inside of WAN 2 GP, so let's pop back to that. If I go to the list of models and go down to WAN GP system processing, I then get the option to use this stuff, Flash VSR. I did do another video about using Flash VSR, and that was using a different AI thing. But this is the same Flash, but part of WAN 2 GB. So if you've installed this, you've suddenly got Flash. And you can use a 1-pass or 2-pass upscale. 2-pass should theoretically do a better option. But I could do that, pop in the upscaled thing in there, and then upscaling it using Flash, and I'll get a better looking result. Now, when you're using Flash VSR, either the 1 or the 2-pass, you come down here and you choose how much you want to upscale it. Now, I'm choosing 2 times. So my original is 960 by 540, which is exactly half of full HD. So 2 times will make this full HD. So I just leave it at 2 times and let it do that. The chunk size, the Flash stuff uses more RAM than the outpainting. So I find the chunk size has to be smaller. So if I take the outpainted version here, copy as path, pop the path into here. So let's paste it, take out the apostrophes, and then let's put this on, say 10 seconds like it was in the first place, and try and process it. At some point, it's going to come up and say, sorry, Mush, you've run out of RAM. So when you get this out of RAM message, what you've got to do is come down here and change your chunk size. Now, what you can get away with really does depend on your own system. So if you find that 10 doesn't work, you could pop it down to 8, 7, 6, or 5, or something like that. The bigger the chunks you can do, the faster the processing will be. So if you have to whack it down really, really small, it'll take longer, and there's more chance of problems at the joins of the chunks. But again, this one's a little bit of trial and error. So if 10 didn't work, I don't know, I might put it down to 5, see if it worked. Then if 5 worked, I might then put it up to about 7, see if it worked, until I find a figure that actually works. Once you've got a figure, it'll probably work for all future videos. Now here you can see the results using Flash. So this is a 1-pass upscale using Flash. And this is a 2-pass upscale using Flash. And then if I do a split screen and compare that to the upscaling using Starlight, you can see I've got the 2-pass flash on the left, and I've got the Starlight Precise version on the right. And yeah, out of those, they're both very good. I think Starlight Precise does a better job. Now, having used Flash to upscale it, I would then tend to run the detailer over it as well. I would go to wherever that file was made. There's my Flash version. Names are getting very, very long. Of course, I could just change it. I'm going to copy the path, paste path, get rid of the quotation marks. Now this is upscaled, it's now full HD, so it's 1080p. So I'm going to make sure my output resolution is 1080p. And then I've got the strength multiplier. What this does is that will add more and more detail. I have found that if I go beyond 1, it looks pretty awful, but I would try a couple and find a result that you particularly like. Somewhere between 0.5 and 1. I've actually left it at 1 for most things, which I found has been pretty good. But somewhere between 0.5 and 1 probably. But again, if it comes out with a result that you think looks too sharp, then try popping this down. And then click Start Process and again let it get on with it. Now you might find as well that you run out of memory, so you might have to drop your chunk size if you do run out of memory. But that actually does a pretty good job of taking your Flash VSR and then improving it a little bit more. So for a comparison, so on the left here we have Flash VSR, and on the right we have Flash VSR with the detailer added to it. Now that's 3 levels of processing, and again I'm having to do this one clip at a time, so it gets slightly tedious because I can't batch this stuff. Now let's compare the Flash VSR detailer version, which is all done with the free stuff, to what I did by upscaling it with Starlight inside of Topaz. And I still think that Starlight's got the edge. But actually, Flash VSR detailer for free is actually pretty flipping good. Okay, I think I've wobbled on for quite enough time for one video there. I'm going to do a second video which explains how to install Pinolio and WAN2GP and a few configuration options in that. And then after that, I'll go into some of the problems that I have had, like getting consistency between shots and other little issues that have popped up and how I deal with them. So I hope you found that video useful. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of thing. And just follow the link in the description or popping up on screen now to go to my second video.